I realized I should have brought my forklift with me when I... It was also enlivening and ultimately fun. Here was someone who really cared about poetry enough to make himself and his friends sweat. That takes guts and a commitment to something other than one's own comfort. You could admire someone like that, and I did. I greatly admired Sherman. One more thing Sherman brought to the workshop was his politics. At a time when American poets, and here I mean mainly white, suburban, middle-class poets like myself, were struggling to find ways to speak meaningfully about racism and sexism and income inequality, Sherman reminded us that we poets had a responsibility to speak the truth about our society. I drive over to his house, not sure which it was, and I'd see the poster from Sister Corita in his front yard and know I was in the right place. You remember that poster? War is not healthy for children and other living things. I loved his house, the art, which often had a political slant, his dog, the original anarchist, and his backyard soiree, as democratic a free-for-all as you can imagine. Later on, after I'd left LA, Sherman put his politics into his practice of poetry, guiding and sustaining beyond Baroque, this august institution, and making it a home for so many LA poets. Talk about grassroots organizing. So today we're here to celebrate Sherman Pearl, a poet, a writer, our friend and benefactor. Long may his barbaric yawp brighten the future of LA and beyond. Barbaric yawp, by the way, is something, it's how Walt Whitman referred to his own poetry. So that wasn't a put down, that was praise, I think. Anyway. Okay, here's a wonderful poem called Shoe. They say every poem is about the practice of writing poems. So this may be one of those. Shoe. I'd have trashed the shoe and forgotten it, but the dog fell in love. He brings it to me for a tug of war, and we pull back and forth, fingers and fangs holding on to the body for possession. The seams grow wider, the leather more tattered. Only the dog wants it now, but he wants it so fiercely, he rips the soul from its stitches, the tongue from the gaping mouth. He shakes the shapeless lump back to life. Laces dance like crazed skeletons. He chews on the worn-down heel, licks the residue of the ground I've walked. He burrows for the foot that used to slide easily in and wearily out. Traces of shine peek through before the dust settles back. The dog's resting now, and the shoe looks like the shoe in photos of murders and bombings. The lonely one lying in the rubble, one of the victims. Yet somehow, oh, miracle of the craftsman who cobbled it into a masterpiece, and the clerk who praised it into a sale, and the dog who has stripped it to its essence, the shoe holds, it endures. Thinking about that poem is also about what happens to a person after a lifetime of writing poetry. Thank you.
Stay. Lee was going to introduce me to you, but I will introduce myself. I am Florence Weinberger, and we were part of the same poetry workshop for many, many years. I was trying to remember when I first met Sherman, and I have a very good memory. My daughter, who was in her 60s, said my memory is better than hers. Well, I said I didn't start smoking pot when I was 13. I didn't start till I was in my 40s. But I do feel as if I've always known Sherman. I know him for his consistency and his integrity, especially for his hospitality. We would meet at his home. We met there for many, many years, and it always felt warm and welcome. And I do miss him. And I'm going to read one of his poems called Don't Choose Me. I've done my duty, wasted hours in the jury box, waited for lawyers to grill me like a suspect, then dismiss me for cause, the cause being whatever they choose. I've been dozing with boredom as old men do, festering in a haze, doing my time till the prosecutor wakes me with his verdict. Perverse system. Don't choose me, mister. Choose the woman beside me who dressed for the ordeal, her righteous nose lifted above the grime, a soft-hearted liberal. At my age, I urinate frequently. I can relate to that. My hearing's so bad I'd be deaf to well-reasoned arguments. I have no patience with wrongdoers, but long to free the accused, guilty or not. That was Sherman. I'd be a terrible jurist. I have no faith that justice can be done in this fatally flawed democracy, though I'm tempted to try. So go ahead and excuse me. I have work to do at home, such as taking out garbage before the rats move in, or writing crank letters to the editor. My time, in short, is short. my call to service eternal, and I know how these proceedings drag out, all that legal gibberish and incessant objections. What's that? You've chosen me? Me? You want me to sit in judgment of my fallible peers? I am honored, sir. I swear I'll do my best.
Good evening. My name is Greg Bell. It's amazing this mic picks up where it is. It's a good mic. I too was asking myself where I met Sherman. It was at a poetry reading right here. And I believe we were introduced by Gloria Vando, who mentioned that they did a workshop together. I never workshopped with Sherman, and the time I spent with him was limited, but it was like falling into the slipstream of an old friendship. We found out we had something in common. I believe he told me his birthday was Shakespeare's birthday, and I, of course, confessed to being a Shakespeare nut. And it turns out that at one of his backyard soirees, I saw a guy I had done something with in regard to putting our creative wares into the commercial arena, his brother Bernie. I don't see you, Bernie, but I know you're here. There you are.
Watch what you say, though.
Oh, okay. Love the groove. You still got it, man. If anything, I'm tempted to say that there was a new muse dedicated strictly to Sherm. I never earned calling him that name. I just assumed it. I would say that his muse was Erasma, as in enthusiasm, enthusiasma. There, that's right. I loved him for his delightful creative imagination and sense of the absurd, but more there for his sense of his deep attention to small things. This poem is a marvelous example, and I'm honored to read it. It's called Connection. For my sister. Did you feel me holding your hand in that tiny space between life and death? I let it lie in mine, and my palm said, "Hold on. I'll guide you through this darkness." Your fingers stirred, as though you'd heard me, and I wondered if they were tapping out a reply. I pressed them softly as a way of saying, "Yes, I know what you mean." Our hands sighed and reminisced together. And when there was nothing left to say, went silent. I tugged a little hoping to pull you back. Then I let go.
I'll just say something. Hello, everyone. My name is Sivan, and this is Ilan, and we were a niece and nephew of Sherman. This is a song, actually, Rachel introduced us to, brought us all to tears immediately, and kind of echoes the essence of Sherman to some degree. I only got a little time with him, but I remember his laugh and his smile so well. We got to spend time together in the Bay Area towards the end of his life. And every interaction I had with him was magical. It was just such an honor to have a little time with him. So I'm very thankful for that. Just a minute.
It's a long and dusty road, a hard and heavy load, and the folks I meet ain't always kind. Some are bad and some are good, some have done the best they could, some have tried to ease my troubling mind. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wonder where I'm bound.
I've been wandering through this land, doing the best I can, trying to find what I was meant to do. And the people that I see, who cares, worried as can be, and it looks like they're a wondering too.
And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wondering where I'm bound. Now I had a little girl one time, she had lips like sherry wine, and she loved me till my head went plump insane. But I was too blind to see she was drifting away from me, and my good guy went off on the morning train. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wondering where I'm bound.
And I had a buddy way back home, but he started out to roam. And I hear he's out by Frisco Bay, and
can't help but wondering where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wondering where I'm bound. Well, if you see me passing by and you sit and you're wondering why, and you wish that you were a rambler too, nail your shoes to the kitchen floor, lace them up and bar the door. Thank your stars for the roof that's over you. And I can't help but wondering where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wondering where I'm bound. And I can't help but wondering where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wondering where I'm bound.
My turn to say hello. I'm Ken Fisher, and you won't be surprised to learn that I intend to share with you some memories in honor of Sherman Pearl. But I also speak for literally dozens of men who counted Sherman as a friend and honored him as a poet. Sherman was a decades-long and greatly cherished member of our Old Men's Group, which has been in continuous existence for at least 50 years, since the 1970s. The group brings together men, only men, from both the east side and west side of Los Angeles. Our meetings in the past were always at each other's homes for a few hours every second week. Thanks to COVID, we now meet mainly by Zoom every week. We are mostly retired educators, writers, businessmen, artists, filmmakers, musicians, lawyers, physicians, and home healthcare workers. In the 10 years that I've belonged, Sherm was a near constant presence until he became ill and was temporarily lost from our view. He established the custom for us of reading one of his latest poems in the last few minutes of each session. Almost always, he was asked to circulate the poem by email to all of us. But Sherm also coaxed others into reading something they had written, and there are a number of people in this group who were so coaxed. But Sherm helped us see deeper into each other's lives by doing that. Sherm seemed to value the group's feedback for his poetry so highly that he would be very obviously disappointed if we hadn't stopped our discussions early enough to leave time for him. His was a voice of passion, deep concern for political justice, and unabashed love for all mankind. We miss him.
Mariana?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Mariano Zaro. I didn't know Sherman very well. Many years ago, I went to a poetry reading in Pasadena, Sherman was the feature reader. There was an open mic. At that time, I didn't know many people in the Los Angeles literary world. Well, I didn't know many people in Los Angeles, period. In the open mic section, I read a couple of poems. I went back to my seat and I felt a little bit alone. At the end of the reading, Sherman came and introduced himself. We talked for a while. He praised my poems. He was very generous. He asked, "Where are you from?" I asked, "When did you start writing?" The conversation was easy. His words were real, welcoming. There was no pretense. It was as if he was opening a gate that felt too heavy for me. He had that strength. He was also respectful, almost tender. I felt less alone. And this is his poem. I forgot something. On my way out, I brushed past you with a wave, my head already in the car. 2 blocks gone, I screeched a U-turn and headed back home. Something I needed was lost in the fringes of memory. I couldn't go on without it. I patted my pockets, searched the back seat, the glove compartment, and asked myself how I could have left something vital. Tried to picture what I had forgotten. I know it's somewhere here in the house, but I can't fathom where to start looking. I'll be late if I don't find it soon, and if I can't name it, you cannot help me, except maybe by holding the door open and kissing me goodbye, as though we might never kiss again. Thank you.
Hi. My name is David. I'm sorry to say that I never met Sherman, or at least that if I did, I had no memory of it. I know Sherman through my contact with a couple different circles that he was in. The first house that I ever lived in was the lower level of Adrian's house. And during my first 4 years in LA, I saw a lot of Bernie. And since my family moved to San Diego after that, my contact with this group of people has been a collection of glancing blows, but I felt them. And they have been deeply beautiful. The character that I see in this group of people is one that I recognize to my bones. it seems to be characterized by an unimpeachable dignity shot through with self-effacing humor, like sunlight through a shining cloud bank. Hearing the poetry today, I think told me at least enough to be going on with about Sherman. I think that music and poetry at their best emulate each other. And while I may not have too much to go on, I think that, like a good poem, I hope to say the most with the least material. I'm gonna improvise something based on what I'm feeling.
I told him not too bad. David Antonio Borov played at my daughter and son-in-law's wedding a few years ago, and they hired a rap and soul band. David sat in with them, cut him a brand new one. He was wonderful. He comes by it honestly. His dad is one of my oldest and dearest friends, multi-instrument, multi-talented. His mom is a gorgeous flamenco dancer. He comes by his talent honestly, but he put in the work. How about one more time for David Bois? I wanted to talk about my brother. And so the steps that it took to bring us really together. My family I'm the youngest of 5 children. My sister was born 2 years before the next birth, which was my brother Stan, who was born 2 years before the next boy. My brother Ed, who was born before the next boy, Sherman, who was born 4 years ahead of me. I was an oops baby. And Sherman and I were together a lot. In fact, we shared a bed a couple times as my parents were moved from one place to the other in Boyle Heights. He used to torment me, and for instance, there were all these radio shows that, and he'd augment it. He wasn't vicious, he wasn't mean, he never abused me, but he did try to drown me a couple times in Santa Monica, but it was okay. I had one real close brother, and that one was Brother Stan, who was some 8 years and a half older than me and was the kind of brother who would put his arms around you and talk to you. It was a little different with Sherman. We liked each other, of course, but it was not pal. How to put this? Pretty much, we were in Boyle Heights. All of us, except for Sherman, were members of a labor Zionist youth group, very Israel-centered. Started actually by the Yaroslavsky family, who you might be familiar with. And Sherman never joined. He was outside of that. There came a time when he went into the Army. I believe he actually was the editor of the Fort Sill, Oklahoma newspaper. He was writing way back then. I remember that. And then at a certain point, he was in the Army in Germany, and I heard that he actually went to Israel. He was the first one of the Pearls. All 4 of us were involved with Israel. He was the first one to set foot in Israel, and it kind of surprised me. And I was preparing to go after high school. I went, I met up with him on his kibbutz. He was a part of a program called Ulpan, which I looked it up in my dictionary today. There's no word Ulpan. It probably was an acronym for something, but it was very similar to the program I was on up in the north, where you worked on a kibbutz, and the Ulpan was mainly Hebrew language oriented. One of the things he told me about the Ulpan was that there were several South African Jewish men part of the program, and one of them was an overt racist. And one day Sherman got tired of it and challenged him and told him to cut it out, and the other guy didn't like it. I can't imagine that he did any less than give a good accounting of himself. He never mentioned it, but he was that kind of guy. Very strong, and when he got determined to fight for the right thing, he would fight. At any rate, I stayed on the kibbutz to the end of 1958, and Sherman came back much earlier. 40 years later, I'm sitting around looking at the calendar going to 1997. That was 40 years after I went to Israel and after I met up with him there. And our brother Stan was very staunch in support of Israel. And at one point, I said, I better go back because I had friends over there that I met on my workshop group and also friends from Los Angeles, including Shimona Yaroslavsky, who was living over there at the time. So I was getting prepared to go over there, and I heard that he was on an ulpan, and I went over, and we met up there, and then he left the ulpan and came back home, and then started traveling. So I never really got close to him and did things with him for the first several years back. There were times when our brother Stan, who was an optometrist and part of in the valley, and was part of the various service groups and so forth, and among his patients there were sports fans who had season tickets to things, and every so often Stan would say, "I've got tickets for the Lakers. You want to go?" And I would say, "Yeah," and I would meet him at the forum, and Sherman came too. So the three of us went to different places, but Stan was more my eternal long life big brother, and Sherman was somebody that I spoke to and related to, but we had not really connected. I asked Stan if he would go to Israel with me. And this is on the return in 97. And he said, "Sure, I'd love to." He'd never been there. And he said, "Let's ask Sherman too." I was wary of that because Sherman was very staunchly against the colonization and very pro the state, as I was. But that wouldn't stop me from going back to visit my friends and show support to them, and also get their point of view of things, and also to share with Stan, who had never been there, some of the things that I knew about it, the country. So we did ask Sherman, and he voiced objection for a while, and then finally said, "Yes, I'll go with you." We were to go in December, and the morning of the day we were supposed to fly out of LAX, I got a call early in the morning from my brother's, from the girlfriend of my brother Stan, who said, "Well, Stan had experienced some pains overnight, and he's being examined by a doctor, but things seem okay." And I said, "Okay." It was early in the morning. We were leaving, let's say, noontime. And a little while later, I got a call from my nephew, Stephen, who is here with us today. Steve, where are you? There he is, right back there. He said, "Well, Dad said it's not a heart attack, but they're going to keep him overnight and see what happens." And he said, "You guys go, and I'll meet you there on Monday." Stephen told me that. So I took that to be what was happening, and I called Sherman. We decided we were going to go. We had not gone anywhere, done anything together for a very, very long time. I was a little bit nervous about it, to be honest. I didn't know how it would be together on a flight and together renting a car and going all these different places that we had planned to go. But we went, and we landed and went to stay with a friend of ours, a friend of mine who was one of the leaders of the group, and they were living on a moshav, and so we got to acclimate ourselves to a cooperative farm. And as we went through our itinerary, we became more relaxed with each other. And there were times, we had rented a car, where there were times when he wanted to stay somewhere and I wanted to go. So we did our separate thing. He stayed back and did a lot of writing, and I went and drove around to see things that I hadn't seen before and so forth. The entire 10-day trip was just like that. We gave each other room to be ourselves, but yet we enjoyed much together. If there was tension or whatever it was, all the distance disappeared. And we came back very close friends. Whatever had occurred during our childhoods and
previous years was not a barrier to being very, very close friends. And we went back 2 years later with our brother Stan. The three of us had an absolute ball. So the moral, or the outcome of that, was that when we came back, Sherman asked me if I would do a series of readings with him, and I would play the blues and he would read his poetry. And he called it Poetry Gets the Blues. And I did use that same guitar and had one other that I played. And we would sit down and orchestrate essentially blues, although sometimes it wasn't just blues, it was rumbas and whatnot. After he got into Cuba, he wrote about Cuba. And so we had an absolute wonderful ball, and we remained close for the rest of his life, and I miss him terribly. That's what I wanted to share with you, and Rachel, and I thank you all for being here. And I miss Sherman.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for being here today at Beyond Baroque, and thanks to Beyond Baroque for hosting this. I didn't know Sherman. My name is Jim Natel, by the way, and I didn't know Sherman really well, but we ran into each other over and over at poetry events, and eventually we became close. And we used to meet for breakfast every once in a while at a place called Bagel Nosh over on Wilshire Boulevard. Horrible place. But Sherman liked it, and it was close to where he lived, so we would meet there, and parking wasn't terrible. And, you know, every time we would meet, I'd come away just thinking, what a great guy he was, and how much I enjoyed talking poetry to him, and we talked current events and so on. Well, later on, we got a little closer because my wife Tanya and I run a small press called Conflux Press, and we published 3 books for Sherman. It's a little story about this first one. It's called Poem in Time of War. Now, as we always do when we started, you know, this was the first book we did with him, and so as I always do, I said, well, do you have a vision for what you kind of image you'd like on the cover that would work for you? Have you thought about that? He says, well, next time we're going to meet again. I said, okay. And he comes over and he brings this big book, big art book of art about war. And, you know, it had all the Goya things and so on. But there was this one piece, and this is it. And he said, I want this on the cover. At the time, I was working for the National Football League in a creative executive capacity. And I looked at Sherman and I said, well, Sherm, I know that artist. That's Brad Holland. He's one of the top illustrators in America. You see his work all the time in Playboy and other things. I said, he's so expensive that the NFL won't use him. And Sherman was really disappointed, I could tell. And I said, okay, look, it won't hurt to ask. I'll see what he wants, you know, just prepare yourself. So I had to track Brad Holland down. I didn't know him, and I found him through the Art League in New York and eventually wound my way through. And I sent him an email, and I told him what we had in mind and about this piece. And surprisingly, I got an email back really quickly. And Brad says, I love that piece, and nobody's ever used it before. And he said, and the idea that it's going to be on the cover of a poetry book is wonderful. And he let us use it for free. So, you know, Sherman, of course, was really happy about that. And right about the time that this poem and book came out, I don't know if many of you remember this, but Sherm was kind of a featured poet in a documentary film called Voices in Wartime. Came out in 2004 or 2005, I think. And if you haven't seen it, it's really worth watching because there are just a number of fantastic poets in there from all walks of life in many countries talking about what poetry can do, in terms of stopping wars or just commenting on wars. Anyway, I'm going to read the title poem of this book called The Poem in Time of War. And I'm not going to read it without these glasses on. The Poem in Time of War. The poem in time of war should wake the city shouting, "Extra, extra," then whisper the story behind the story like a conspirator. It should be short and stirring as the president's call to arms, soft enough for a flag at half-mast, strong enough to stiffen the backs of the bereaved, spacious enough to serve as a body bag. The poem should carry the news that men die miserably for lack of, must be a brief on behalf of the living, a paper megaphone for the voices of the dead. It is the world's last will and testament, a listing of what will be left. It steals from its forebears Sassoon's doomed diary and Auden's call to love. The poem would be a prescription for healing, but who could read such a scrawl? Or a bandage over the wounds, except that blood tends to obliterate words. Maybe all the war poems should be sewn together into a vast, thick quilt we'd pull around our shoulders. It might warm us on nights like this. Thank you, Sherman. I miss you.
I just have to say what a beautiful event this has been in celebration of Sherman and his poetry. My God, just lovely. My name is Annika Paris. I am Gloria Vando's daughter, and she unfortunately couldn't be here. But that's how I met Sherman. I met Sherman through my mother, Gloria. And the funny thing is, I'm primarily a singer, songwriter, musician first and foremost, but I've been writing poetry my whole life and rather shy about it. And I remember it was Sherman who said to Gloria, Annika should join our poetry group because he had heard one of my poems. And so I was very moved, and he was so supportive and really inspired everybody to be their best and to write from the heart and to say something important. He and I also were very politically aligned, and so after we started doing poetry readings at my mother's place, we ended up doing them on Zoom. And I remember before everybody else came on, it was me and Sherman. He would show up very early. He'd be waiting for like 10 minutes before the Zoom started, and we'd scream and yell and curse about the world today. So it was always fun. Before I read a beautiful poem that Rachel shared with me, I'm going to read Richard Modigliani couldn't be here, and so he asked me to read this on behalf of Sherman. Sherman Pearl was a poet of conscience and clarity, a man whose words carried both moral weight and lyrical grace. To remember him, to recall not only his work on the page, but the steady, generous presence he brought to the literary community. He believed poetry mattered, deeply, urgently, and he lived that belief in everything he did. As board president of Beyond Baroque, Sherman was not content to simply steward an institution. He imagined ways for it to grow, to reach further, to matter more. It was his vision that gave rise to the annual awards banquet, a gathering that became a touchstone for celebrating poets and enduring powers of their voices. He also conceived the Young Poets Development Program, planting seeds for future generations. That program would go on to nurture remarkable talent, including Amanda Gorman, whose voice now resonates across the world, a testament to Sherman's faith in young writers and his commitment to their flourishing. On a personal level, Sherman's support was unwavering. During my time as executive director, he offered encouragement, insight, and trust in equal measure. He had a way of making the work feel both purposeful and possible, even in difficult moments. His leadership was never distant. It was engaged, thoughtful, and deeply humane. Sherman Pearl leaves behind more than poems. He leaves a legacy of care, imagination, and quiet determination. Those of us who had a privilege to work alongside him carry forward not only his ideas, but the example he set that poetry can build community, that leadership can be generous, and that belief in others is one of the most enduring gifts we can offer. And that's from Richard Modiano. And I remember I said to Rachel, I don't know what to read. And she said, I'm going to send you a couple of poems. And this just floored me. I find it beautiful. And in honor of that, I did find, it's called A Leaf. I found a leaf that fell from the tree beyond Baroque. I'll give it to you at the end of this. A leaf falls. When the green season's over, I want to blaze till I fall from our tree like one of its leaves. Let my stem release me because I've grown tired of holding on. Let the wind deposit me in the quiet part of the yard where casts off go to die. I want to flutter to the ground, wings spread, maybe spin a few times on the way. I want a small child to pluck me from the pile before I crumble. I want her to take me home, paste me into her scrapbook, then trace my outline and color me in. Let me fall on a restful Sunday. On Mondays, the gardener comes toting his blower and chainsaw and clippers like an armed invader. His machines raise the day's serenity with their mechanical roars of rat-tat-tat gunfire. If I were to endure till Monday, the blower would blast me into the trash can. The saw and clippers would trim everything wild and excessive and leave the tree in mourning. The turmoil would explain both warfare and gardening, how they stimulate one another. I'd just as soon mix the lecture. I am, after all, the one who hired the gardener to prettify my life, to keep it in order. I'm glad I've helped him feed his family, but let him leave me on the ground like something he overlooked. Let the child find me intact, lift me delicately, hold my fading colors up to the sun.
Most of us know at least the chorus for.
The problem is the Spotify list played for me once and it won't play again.
Oh, okay.
Name the song. I can put any song.
Well, I thought we could do So Long, It's Been Good to Know You. But the
people I've met and the places I've been, some of the troubles that bothered my mind, and a lot of the people that I've left behind, singing so long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. What a long time since I've been home, and I gotta be drifting along. The sweethearts, they sat in the dark and they sparked. They hugged and they kissed in that dusty old dark. They sighed and they cried and they hugged and they kissed. But instead of marriage, they talked like this, honey. So long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. What a long time since I've been home, and I gotta be drifting along. I went to your family, I asked them for you. They all said, take her, oh take her, please do. She can't cook or sew and she won't scrub your floor. So I put on my coat, tiptoed out the door, singing so long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. What a long time since I've been home, and I gotta be drifting along. I walked down the street to the grocery store. It was crowded with people, both rich and both poor. I asked the man how his butter was sold. He says 1 pound of butter for 2 pounds of gold. I said, so long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. What a long time since I've been home, and I gotta be drifting along. My telephone rang and it jumped off the wall. That was the preacher making a call. He said, we're waiting to tie the knot. You're getting married, believe it or not. Well, the church, it was jammed, the church, it was packed. The pews were crowded from the front to the back. 1,000 friends waited to kiss my new bride, but I was so anxious I rushed her outside, told them, so long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. For a long time since I've been home, and I gotta be drifting along.
So let's all thank you for everybody for your beautiful words, and for Dad for his words and his life, and the gorgeous music and reflections. So how about we all go to the courtyard, have some food and drinks. There's a copy for anybody who wants it of Elegy for myself outside, and grab one or two and sign the book. And thank you all very much.
This land is your land, this land is my land, California, New York Island, Redwood Forest, Gulf Stream waters, this land is made for you.